flirting with me. 3, 2, 1.
Tastefully is the word that comes to mind. Like, I enjoy a tasteful. You look fantastic, right?
That's true. If it's wanted, it's fine, but then like, you can't mind read, how would you know? We've all had like bad flirting experiences, but then like I'm thinking there's a couple I've had where they're like, excuse me, I just want to let you know you're very beautiful, please have a nice day. And I'm like, okay, thank you. You know, and like something like that, that's like short and sweet and there's no expectation. I think that's the thing.
I mean, and I'm from New York, so I'm just like automatically on autopilot. Like, don't talk to me, don't look at me. Like my whole life you have the cat calls, but you have like the derogatory cat calls. So if I don't look at you, if I don't speak to you, I'm a B. I'm all of these things, but it's like, but if I did give you the time of day, then what would I be?
And I don't think like every guy is like that, but it's just so much
so
easier and safer to just assume.
To assume that nothing is, and it's not a good way to live, obviously, but that's just.
Well, because then my question is who gets let in? And how do you determine who gets let in? And how do you function
If they start the, I guess, relationship in a non-romantic or sexual way, like if it's not like a flirty, it's just like you just meet people places and they just talk to you, and just talk to you like a normal person.
Can I just say that I feel very uncomfortable talking about this question, but actually watching it did make me think of a few things. But
I know you were like uncomfortable with this question completely, but for me, I think that's relevant. So I wanted to talk about it because I think that a lot of our young sisters go through these experiences, and you know, there's so many issues which kind of come about as a result of it. Like there's so many things that the sisters in this video have said, you know, and that I could comment on basically. Firstly, the issue of whether, you know, a man approaching you is in good taste or not, like whether you like him or not. And obviously, like in the Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that, you know, a man and a woman, if the man and the woman are together, the third person is shaitan. So we have in Islam like very clear boundaries that we're supposed to like not be in seclusion with the opposite gender, as well, kind of avoids any kind of conversations which could lead to these kind of things. So you talk to an opposite gender out of necessity. It's not something that you just do, you know, laughing and joking for the sake of it. But a lot of the time in Western culture now, this is becoming something that's almost normal. And even with Muslims who are involved in dawah as well, this can happen a lot, you know. So it's something we have to really be wary of. And I think that often, a lot of times, women, especially young girls, can be very naive as to the, you know, the kind of the boundaries with a male-female interaction. You know, one of the girls said as well that she said that she's always in "don't talk to me" mode. So she, you know, she doesn't like any attention from men.
Like that.
And literally, like, subhanAllah, I like that she mentioned that, because I feel like as a Muslim woman, you know, every time you step out of your house, that should be how your mind is. Like you're with focus, laser focus. You're going outside because of X, Y, Z. So the dangers could be sometimes, especially with groups of young girls, for example, you know, you're out with the group and sometimes they, you know, enjoying themselves too much, laughing. People can hear them, like, you know, these kind of things. And they can become a point of attraction to males, basically, you know. Even as Muslim girls. And this is something that, you know, it's like they need to like think about these things, become more aware as well. Another point that I wanted to just pick up on as well was one of the other ladies. She said, well, if we don't have these experiences where a man is approaching us and like doing this kind of flirting, how do we find somebody to be with, basically, is what she was saying. How do we get into relationships? You know, how do you find somebody? How do you find yourself a man?
If you looked at how they were all talking to each other, they were all saying, okay, well, I like it this way, but you know, that way, and I like it this way, and I like know that way, and then it became blurred. Like, I think one of them mentioned, like, how would you know then? The other one said, well, you just take all of that out the picture. And you're like, subhanAllah, look, they're starting to realize that actually when we don't have boundaries, then it gets
Problem.
messy.
Of course.
And we don't want to be wrapped up in that, you know.
Exactly.
So alhamdulillah, if we say, okay, then how can we do this? And then we look at the Islamic principle and the Islamic way of seeking marriage. Look at it. Does it not just seem like the perfect answer for those ladies? Like, actually, let's take that out of the picture. Let's get other men involved to represent you so that they can make sure this guy is here for the right reasons.
For the right reasons, exactly.
You know?
In Islam, we know that there's no friendship between male and female. But what I liked about her comment was the fact that even for somebody who's looking for marriage, we often forget the kind of friendship elements, because sometimes we get maybe recommended somebody for marriage, for example, and maybe we hear that, oh, it's a good brother and he's got this, that, and the next credentials. And we look at these kind of CB type things, which are obviously definitely beneficial, but we forget that, you know, as a man and a woman going into a marriage together, you should look for somebody who is your friend. So it's that issue of compatibility. That's what you need to be looking for. So that's what I like about what she said.
I think it's also important to know the reason why we get men to represent us. They understand each other's mentality. That if a guy is approaching you as a Muslim in this sort of manner, doesn't want to go to your wali, then he's not a guy that you should be getting involved with at all.
That's just it.
And I think this is a problem that we have with the youth on both sides. First of all, we have a whole bunch of YouTuber couples talking about how they met outside of this situation, which I think is a huge flaw on their part. And I hope, inshallah, that they reflect on that. And if that is how they met, you know, but I personally don't care how other people met their husbands. However, when we are online and we are Muslims, we have a duty to represent how it should be. You know, our mistakes are our mistakes. We hide them, we repent, and may Allah forgive us for those. But we don't encourage other people. We don't show that it's not a big deal. This is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think it's so important that before the youth are looking to get into marriage, or when they are considering, I think they should go on to a marriage type course that gives them an understanding of the process, the lead up to marriage, and how you approach marriage, but also details on how your role within the marriage, and also knowing the role of the other person in the marriage as well. You know, there has been many stories that I've heard, especially from reverts, and I don't know if you can relate, where they have got married very quickly because they thought that maybe their husband could be, you know, a mentor to them, but they had no idea what mahar was. They had no idea what dowry was. And, you know, I think to combat a lot of what Red Pill is saying out there, you know, about people asking for high mahars and stuff like that, I definitely think that people need to be realistic, but we shouldn't be compromising our mahar for any man either.
For a lot of men who are out there now who are saying that, you know, women should have more simple mahar, yeah, that still doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a good marriage necessarily. Do you know what I mean? I know some sisters who they've had very low mahars and then been married to brothers, and the brothers have just taken complete advantage of them, and they still ended in divorce. You know, so it doesn't mean that, oh, because you let yourself get married for a very low mahar, that means that, you know, and it's because they say, like, it's, you know, it's like, oh, you're a more pious sister because, oh, mashallah, you know, low mahar and this kind of thing. But what I would ask all those men is that if it was your daughter who was getting married, would you allow her to marry for that iron ring? Do you know what I mean? I know that's in the Sunnah, but like there was people in the Sunnah, all different types of mahars, okay? So as you said, it's about the means of the person and what makes sense for the woman as well, or what she will accept. But it's the level of responsibility that goes with it. You know, I think some guys, they just want that quick and easy, but if you get it easy, are you going to make sure that you take care of it properly? That's the reality. Like, that's with everything.
Well, can I just tell a story? When it come to, like, my first marriage, I was a very new Muslim, so I'm not going to get into that. But with my second marriage, when it came to the mahar, you know, I wanted to make it low because I'm not a materialistic person. I don't need anything. I'm really content. However, my husband was like, no. You know, my husband was like, no, this is not how it works. You can't do this. Like, what is this? It was his honor and his responsibility. He felt that I was chipping into. And I think that's what these narratives that are going around today are lacking. You know, as men, they should want to put that mahar out there. Flexibility is there for authentic and good reasons, but it's not something that every woman should be advised to do. That's so negligent. And the man himself, if the mahar is reasonable, shouldn't be wanting their future wife to lower that just for the sake of lowering it. They should want to uphold that because that is a part of the man and that masculine essence that no, let me provide, let me care, let me look after you, and that's the very beginning of that. That is the first step of that. And if you're just allowing that to be lowered just for the sake of your ego, sake of you not wanting to put your hand in the pocket. I mean, it doesn't say a lot, you know.
It does. For me, it's a red flag, to be honest, because I mean, as I said, those men who say that they want the women to lower the mahar, and as I said, I'm agreeing with you completely. You know, there's flexibility in it, but a man should feel pride in trying to uphold that if you seriously want to marry this woman. And I'm not talking about when you know, the woman is being forced by her parents to, like, you know, ask for a ridiculous amount of money. That is a different issue, but also that's a red flag for the man as well, because if the parents of the woman is having this kind of, you know, overbearing influence, then that's a sign too. So, you know, as a man, you should be aware of that. Maybe it's not like a good choice for you, basically. But like for those men,
which is a shame.
Exactly. But for those men, if you just want these women, like want to marry a woman with a low mahar just because, would you accept that for your daughter? Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to think about the future. And for me, like when I hear this kind of thing, I'm thinking, is this a man who's thinking about the future? Because if that's what you're saying you want now, then later on, when somebody comes up for your daughter's hand, would you be happy to giving your daughter away for the same? You know, for me, there's a lot.
And I think, and I think the sisters, what they need to realize is that there's a reason why you have your rights. And although there's flexibility there, it shouldn't just be taken lightly, because if you start the marriage by lowering your standards and allowing certain rights, letting certain rights go, it doesn't set a good precedent for the rest of the marriage. You do put yourself at risk, and that's obviously dependent on the guy, and not all guys are bad, you know. There are great guys out there, and guys who fear Allah and want to do right by you and everything else, but you do put yourself at risk of, you know, having to deal with that your full marriage. I think what would be beneficial for the youth, and not even the youth, just Muslims in general, if they are going into marriage, that they know their role and they try to uphold the rights that are given to each from the Quran and Sunnah, because that is what's best for them. You know, that is what will help make the marriage work. If you have your deen and that love of Allah and the love for the Sunnah in common, then it will be very hard for anything else to interfere with that.